Most people think it takes years, perfect credit, and a ton of money down to get into their first home. But in actuality, out of the hundreds of people I've helped get into their first home, most were a lot closer than what they thought. In this video, I'm going to take you step by step what it takes to go from renter to homeowner and buy your first home in Colorado in 2026. Let's get started. So I've been helping people get into homes since 2008. I'm both a licensed real estate agent and mortgage broker. So I work with both sides of the transactions, from getting you pre-qualified, going over what numbers you're comfortable with, to ultimately negotiating the house that you love. Let's start the step-by-step process and what should take place first. So step one is not finding the house. It's actually knowing your numbers. And I know a lot of us start the home journey by going onto Zillow or Realtor.com or any of those and seeing a pretty home that we like and we want to get into. And that's essentially what starts the process. But then we kind of have to back up a little bit and we really need to know our numbers. So a lot of these websites offer mortgage calculators, but you have to be very careful when you're running those numbers. Those are typically accounting for 20% down. A lot of times the property taxes are not entered properly, so those are off, as well as what they're estimating for homeowners insurance. So those numbers might look a lot worse or a lot better than what your actual scenario is. So you really want to get with a mortgage broker, and that's where someone like me comes in. I can run your mortgage application, see where your credit sits, see what your debt to income is, and ultimately pre-qualify you for what payment, not only that you do qualify for, but what you're comfortable with. So I may say that you qualify to buy a $500,000 home, but what that doesn't account for is, so let's say you have an expensive hobby or you love to travel all the time. My calculator is not going to know that. So just because I pre-qualify you for $500,000 doesn't necessarily mean you should spend that. That just means that that's the highest you can go up to. So once you've submitted your mortgage application and I've gone over all your documents, we can assess what your debt to income is, what your payment is going to look like, and what you're comfortable with, and formulate a game plan there. After that, I can get you a pre-qualification letter. So that is huge when you're out shopping for a home. You really want to be armed with a pre-qualification letter in your possession. That way, when you do find a home you like, you have a lot more bargaining power. You are showing the listing agent that you are a well-qualified buyer. You've been vetted. You've had your debt to income checked, and you're good to go. Without that, you're just kind of a window shopper, and people don't really want to negotiate with you unless they have some kind of documentation that says you've actually spent time getting checked out and that you are a valid home buyer. So the next step is probably the most fun step, and that's actually shopping for a home. So when you go out there and you're looking for a home, there's a lot of things to consider, and it's not just how beautiful the home is. There's a lot of other factors that you want to look into and that your agent should help you look into as well. So one of those huge things is HOA. HOAs in single family homes are typically pretty reasonable. There are some rare cases where they're really expensive if they offer a lot of amenities or things like that. Townhomes and especially condos can be huge in HOAs. So you might find a condo or a townhome that's reasonably priced, you're excited, but the HOA may run $500-600, and that may be way beyond what your payment allows for or what you want to pay. Some other factors are property taxes. There's certain areas that are very high on property taxes compared to others. That also affects your payment. Are you going near a flood zone and your insurance is not going to want to insure you, period, or your insurance is going to skyrocket? Things like that are things to consider before purchasing. Also, some exterior factors. Are you close to a major roadway? Are you near something that's going to make it very hard to sell down the road? These are all factors that are very important when you're out shopping for a house, not just how pretty the house is. Also, one thing that I run into a lot lately is solar panels. This can also be a monthly expense. So you want to find out if those solar panels are owned or leased, because if they're leased, that lease has to get assumed by you. So if it's $200 a month for that lease, you have to assume that. And now that's another $200 that I have to account for in your debt to income, or that goes into that monthly payment that you may not want to account for. So just be cognizant of all those factors aside from just how beautiful that house is. So the next step is obviously once you found that house you love, now comes making an offer. Making an offer is the job of a real estate agent, but it's also their job to consult with you and figure out what terms you really want to go for. Sometimes it's you shoot for the moon and they counter and you kind of meet in the middle. As of recording this in 2026, right now it's totally a buyer's market in most areas. So really, this is the time where buyers can really ask for a ton of things. So that includes closing costs, for them to pay all your closing costs, as well as many times I ask for the seller to buy down your interest rate. So interest rates are not terrific right now, but they can be if the agent negotiates those rates down. So I always ask for closing costs, and I'm almost always asking for an interest rate buy down as well, which can get your payment a lot more in line with what you want. So now that you're under contract, you're going to be doing a few things. One is you're going to continue feeding your mortgage broker documents. So on the mortgage broker side, I'm going to be bugging you for pay stubs and things that I didn't collect initially that I need updated on, bank statements, things like that. On the real estate side, the next step that you'll want to do is get the home inspected. So you can always go with your own inspector or listen to your agent if they have a preferred list of inspectors. Just find somebody that's good, because this is a really important step. If they miss something important, this can be a very costly mistake for you down the line. You want to make sure that home, it doesn't necessarily need to be perfect. You're looking for material defects or health and safety items, something that's that you can negotiate before you purchase that home. If the furnace just went out or the water heater has a gas leak, something like that, that can end up costing you thousands down the line that you do not want to pay for. So it is really important to get a proper, thorough inspection. Also in Colorado, we have some sewer issues in some homes, and that is very costly. So if you are offered the opportunity to do a sewer scope, you should definitely take that. I know it's a little bit extra to spend on it, but if you miss a belly in the line or there's some issue with the sewer, you could be looking up to $30,000 or more. That cost is going to get passed on to you by just not paying the couple hundred extra dollars to get that inspected up front. So the next step after the inspection, assuming everything goes well and you and the seller agree to those terms, the lender is going to order the appraisal. So the appraisal gets ordered, the appraiser comes out, looks at comps, assesses the neighborhood, make sure that value is appropriate for what you're paying for it. So let's say your real estate agent screwed up and you're way overpaying for the house. This should get caught in an appraisal. So you should never really pay too much for a home, because it should get caught during the appraisal process. This is a very important step, and this is on the lender to do. So the lender orders that and gives you a copy of that report to show you what that home valuation actually came in at. So once you've turned in all your documents, you're past the appraisal, everything's gone smooth, it's going to go to underwriting for their final approval on the mortgage side. Once they review that and they stamp the final approval, you're going to get what's called a clear to close. That is the magical phrase that means you are good to buy this house. You are done with the process. You've done everything asked of you, and now it's time to schedule closing. One thing to note is when you close, you don't have a mortgage payment for 2 months. So let's throw out a scenario where you close in the first week of May. If you close the first week of May, you're not going to have a payment for the rest of May as well as June. Your first payment would be due in July. So whatever month you close in, now if you close at the end of May, it's still the same. So if you close like May 25th, you're still going to have only May and June to not have to make a mortgage payment. That's really important if you're currently in a lease right now with your rental, making sure that you don't have double payments or that you're timing it appropriately so that you can account for transitioning from one place to another. So hopefully I've been able to break this down, make it a little bit simpler and easier to understand so it's not such an overwhelming process. If you're curious about Colorado's down payment assistance program and how you can get into a house as little as $1,000 down, click on the video at the end and I'll explain step by step how to get into a house for as little as $1,000 down. As always, please like and subscribe for more information on home buying tips. Thank you.